Okay, Dan, I'm here with Garth Haslam, the structural engineer that we brought up to have a look at this place. We're going to give his assessment here.
All right, I feel famous, Dan. So, this is not what I expected it to be. Based on the descriptions that I'd heard, I expected that the geology would be just sliding down the hill, taking the home with it. Under those conditions, structural piers don't help because the geology that's moving would take the piers with it as it takes the home. Structural piers are going to be helpful if the home is moving down vertically and it needs the vertical support. So you don't have either of those conditions. This home is not moving down vertically. And I'll describe this better, but it's crumbling, for lack of a better term. So the good news is that if it was a geologic thing, there would be no hope unless you basically built the equivalent of a log cabin that could basically float on the surface of the moving soil. This home, being block, is so heavy that kind of creates its own set of problems. You do have on this must be the south side here.
Yes.
That gap between this block wall and the concrete wall, which is actually the retaining wall. So this wall does not retain any weight of the soil. It's just carrying a vertical load from the roof down, but it's crumbling. And so again, that's not soil pushing that in. That is the weight of the wall above that's just overwhelming. So you've got a combination of the weight of the wall with Grandpa 1969 construction, and when he did the work, this is a workmanship issue. When he did the work, he didn't compact the soil well enough. And that's not a surprise given that it was 1969 and you couldn't get a compactor up here. So he probably cleared the soil, or cleared the area, graded it out as well as he could, probably with a shovel. That's about as much equipment as he could get here. And then he built a home, a heavy home. And he built it however he knew how to do it. So time goes, and now the weight of the wall is causing what you see here. So you've got that here. You got it in a number of locations. Julian knows the areas. You got some areas that are cracked right there to your right shoulder, Julian, is one where it's been filled in, and then one over here. And then there's a number on the back side. Now, as you look down under your feet, Julian, you'll see that there's some fairly large concrete cracks that also tend to slope toward the downhill, also indicating to me that we didn't have the soil prepped well enough for pouring the concrete. So again, this is not a geologic problem, which is helpful. It's not something, but it's not a problem that piers can help either, because we're on soft soils, and you'd be spending more on the piers. I saw the bid for $20,800. Is that for going all the way around?
Well, no, and it doesn't include engineering work either. It's just like a rough stab.
Okay.
So it's not by any means a comprehensive thing.
So you could do this a couple of different ways depending on your strategy. Now, apparently the home is listed for 180-ish. The land is worth 180-ish if it didn't have anything on it. So from my point of view, it's a disposable home. You could buy the home and use it basically until the disaster happens, and then you clear it and you build whatever on it. That's plan A. Plan B is to knock it down now and build your castle, and then you've got a very cool property in a very cool location that you can always sell for a chunk of money. And I think door number 1 or door number 2 just depends on you and your goals. It's as is. It is very much structurally affected, but you do have the framing here. So even if, let's say there was an earthquake and the masonry fell completely away, or at least in chunks, you still got the framing to bear some structural load. So I don't see a complete collapse coming anytime soon. You're up away from earthquake zone. The earthquake issues happen down near the foothills and down in the valley, much less so up here. So if your goal was to basically have an upgraded shed that you could come and escape to, this is it, and you don't have to go any further. But if you wanted to, that assumes a level of risk. If you wanted to use this space to create something cool, you can do that. The one thing I would advise you against is to deal with the structure as is and then go putting a whole bunch of money into maybe updating the electrical and putting plumbing and just putting maybe $50,000-$60,000 into upgrades
Without dealing with the structure
without
first.
dealing with the structural issues.
So that's you're saying that's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's door number 3, and that's not one that I would suggest.
Yeah.
So it's doable, just depending on what you want to do.
Okay. But so what about those reinforced concrete corners on the downhill side? I mean, do those look like they're doing the job?
Those are doing very well. I don't know what year they put those in, but they are holding the downhill corners solid. The problems are not at those corners or even near those corners. The problem is, for example, right here, which is kind of halfway between those corners, and here, which is also halfway between on the other side. And again, has nothing to do with those corners. But those corners are doing great.
Yeah. Okay, well, shoot, I wish we could do this interactive so we could get... Now, it looks like they've put a rod through here in some kind of an effort to... I noticed that it went through into the retaining wall beyond the perimeter as if they're trying to hold it from falling down or something, but...
Yeah, that rod really is not going to do much. It's